I think this might be news, but I'm just not too sure. Can someone else research this news and possibly concur?
Did you ever look at something going on in the news and go, you know what the situation needs? Go Barack Obama.
I've said this before. People would ask me, knowing what you know now, do you wish like you had a third term? And I used to say, you know what, if I could make an arrangement where I had a stand-in, a front man or front woman, and they had an earpiece in, and I was just in my basement in my sweats looking through the stuff, and then I could sort of deliver the lines, but somebody else was doing all the talking and ceremony. I'd be fine with that.
Ceremony. I'd be fine with that.
Okay, so I think that this is newsworthy, and I feel compelled to share a little bit more information about it, just to keep it in the minds of a few select people that choose to view, my videos, which I appreciate you watching and tuning in. And to me, if we're to understand and know how some of these narratives work and stuff, there's a reason why we put sanctions on other countries, right? Because other countries are doing these horrible things. And to me, it just seems like it was really wrong for the Obama administration, the Kenyan administration, to go through and circumvent sanctions that had been in place for decades, since the 70s even, okay? I mean, in this particular article here, U.S. payment of 1.7 billion to Iran made entirely in cash. This was from 2016, where the Obama administration, the Kenyan administration, acknowledged that its transfer earlier this year was made entirely in cash back in 2016. Okay, in 2016, they're giving all of this money to Iran, circumventing sanctions that had been in place since the 70s. Okay, and there were some that believed that it was in connection to the release of 4 American prisoners, and the Obama administration claimed that the events were separate, but then acknowledged that the cash was used as leverage until the Americans were allowed to leave, and the remaining 1.3 billion represented estimated interest on Iranian cash that the U.S. had held since the 1970s. Okay, and the administration previously declined to say if the interest was delivered to Iran in physical cash, as with the principal, or via a more regular banking mechanism. Okay, now in order for Obama to do this, okay, he had to find a bank that would be willing to take on and pay it, okay? Because any bank, according to the Department of Treasury, any bank that associated with any of these people that were accused of these violent crimes, like let me see, it talks about, let me see, Armenia in custody of its morality police and the regime's continued efforts to detain dissenting voices, restrict access to a free and open internet. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps and the law enforcement forces, the head of Iran's prisons organization, 3 individuals and 1 company in connection with the regime's systematic, censorship and blocking of access to the internet. Fars News, Tasnim News, and Press TV, and 3 senior officials. Today's action is taken in coordination with partners from the United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, and other partners who are also imposing sanctions on those involved in the Iranian regime's repression. Okay, sanctions are put in place for a reason. And this whole thing with Obama sending all of this cash over there, what he ultimately had to do was get a bank to fund it more or less, to approve it and put it through and pay it out. Because any bank that was associated with that kind of a payment would have been violating sanctions. So what instead they did, let me just point out too that there was 5.7 billion that was stuck in Omani Bank. Okay, and let me see. In order to spend it, Iran wanted to convert the money into US dollars and then euros, but top US officials had repeatedly promised Congress that Iran would never gain access to America's financial system. And those assurances notwithstanding, the Obama administration secretly issued a license to let Iran sidestep US sanctions for the brief moment required to convert the funds through an American bank. An investigation by Senate Republicans released Wednesday showed that the plan had failed when 2 US banks refused to participate. Okay. So there were US banks that refused to pay this out because they knew that they would be violating sanctions that were put in place by not just the Department of Treasury, but the Department of State, and executive orders. Okay. There were executive orders that were given to sanction Iran and not allow them access to funding. And the Obama administration went around that. Okay. The Obama administration went through and let me see, it says the report by the Senate Permanent Subcommittee on Investigation sheds light on the delicate balance the Obama administration sought to strike after the deal, as it worked to ensure Iran received its promised benefits without playing into the hands of the deal's opponents. Does it really matter? They're going to use the money for whatever they want to use the money for, okay? Amid a tense political climate, Iran hawks in the US, Israel, and elsewhere argued that the United States was giving far too much to Tehran and that the windfall would be used to fund extremism and other troubling Iranian activity. Okay. But still, with that being said, the Treasury Department license issued in February of 2016 and never disclosed would have allowed Iran to convert 5.7 billion it held at Oman's Bank of Muscat from Omani into euros by exchanging them first into dollars. If the Omani bank had allowed the exchange without such a license, it would have violated sanctions that bar Iran from transactions that touch the U.S. financial system. So in this case, the Department of Treasury, the Treasury Department that issued the license that allowed this Bank of Muscat and Omani to transfer all of this money to Iran should probably be held accountable, maybe for something that could be considered treasonous, maybe putting our nation's security at greater risk. I mean, why isn't this something that isn't being pursued? It's just ridiculous to me. We're just going to stand by knowing, and they admittedly sent all of this over to Iran, and Iran is supposed to be like so terrible that we've had sanctions on them for so many decades, and they're just the really bad guys, right? They're the bad actors, right? I mean, and let's just look at Bank Muscat, okay? Internet banking. Bank Muscat is the leading financial institution in Oman with a strong presence in corporate banking, personal banking, investment banking, Islamic banking, treasury, private banking, and asset management. The bank has the largest network of branches and electronic channels in Oman, as well as branches in Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and representative offices in Dubai, Iran, and Singapore. The bank has been closely associated with the progressive march of the nation in all realms, participating in development projects and initiatives aiming at boosting the national economy. We continue to deliver on our commitment to the nation through strategic corporate social responsibility and sustainability programs covering various segments. Isn't that special? Okay. This is the bank that accommodated the transfer. Okay. Here's your board of directors from Bank Muscat. Here's the folks that helped to facilitate and getting Iran billions of dollars. More opportunities, a better banking experience. You can use us to circumvent and launder money. I'm just saying, it bothers me. It really does. And when you have a lot of conflicting type of information, I mean, we can go back through it. We can look at the executive orders, okay? We can just look, we can just look at a couple really quick before I end this video. Let's see if this is the right one. Okay, this was from Clinton. Okay, this was from 1995. When Slick Willie here put an executive order in place prohibiting certain transactions with respect to the development of Iranian petroleum resources. Slick Willie had the ball rolling, huh? Acting under national emergency powers, right, to deal with the threat. I, William J. Clinton, President of the United States of America, find that the actions and policies of the government of Iran constitute an unusual and extraordinary threat to the national security, foreign policy, and economy of the United States, and hereby declare a national emergency to deal with that threat. So you want to talk about who really got the ball rolling with respect to Iran and sanctions and prohibiting different things. We can go all the way back to 95 where Slick Willie put in his own orders. So here it is in 2024 even, where we have these people from Iran that have come forward offering $3 million reward. Let's see if I can find that. I don't know if I can find that. I think this video is probably long enough, and I've already covered that before, where, you know, it doesn't take much to put the 2 and 2s together to come up with the 4s. It really doesn't. And I think that it should bother more people that years ago, not that long ago, you know, not so long ago, that we still can't get some kind of accountability and some kind of transparency on this whole matter, where Obama sent cash, where Obama administration circumvented sanctions that had been in place for decades, okay, and sent billions of dollars to what was categorized, somebody in a group that was categorized as an enemy of the United States. And I think this bank needs to be a little bit more transparent. This bank needs to answer to why they gave money to, you know, and facilitated this transfer of funds. Truly, what was really the purpose of it? To circumvent our sanctions, right? What was the whole point of the sanctions in the first place then? You know? I just think it's just too curious for me, and I think it's newsworthy. So I thank you for watching. It's just bothersome to me that we allow them to do this kind of stuff, you know? Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm planning on doing a video to talk a little bit more about Joe Biden's first wife too, Nelia Hunter Biden. Joe Biden has quite an interesting backstory, um, on his life and what happened to his first wife and how he was sworn in and everything. So I'm going to do another video and show just a little bit more about Nelia Hunter Biden and what information that I've been able to find, and just share my own personal theory on what I think was really going on back then, including an interview with Jill Biden's ex-husband, who claims that Jill cheated with Joe on him. She was married to this dude, Stevenson, and I'll show that too in the video. But anyway, if that interests you, stay tuned. I'm working on that video too to present a little bit of information about Joe Biden's first wife, Nelia Hunter Biden.